director, founding editorial director at Tor, and I've done it all my life practically. Jana covered many of the aspects of how you get as far as a publishing company. So I don't really want to go into that. I think most of you were in the other one. And one thinks of an editor as sitting back kind of like Sherlock Holmes, deciding this manuscript is wonderful, you should publish this. This is what an editor has to do to be allowed to buy a book. And you're not going to be graded on what all these awful figures are, but you have to get the figures out of the marketing and sales department, who are bleary and tired, and they don't even want to think about another book, because what all marketing departments want is the same but different. Editors want the different. And but they have to figure out how I'm going to teach the marketing department how they can sell this thing, which means you'll say it's a lot like, which happens to have been the big seller of the last 6 months. Yeah, if you can figure out some way you can tweak the truth around that one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what that's for.
That's called a P&L, right?
Yeah.
That's the P&L.
This is the input page of the profit and loss statement. You know, if I decide to write a book, I need to come up with basically a profit and loss statement, how much we think we're going to sell, how much we think we're going to make or lose. And so this is one of the first stages and a lot of it is stuff you guesses.
Yeah, how do you get these numbers? I've always wondered that.
As far as the first line up here, I'm pointing here, that doesn't help.
You should have a pointer.
They don't.
There's a pointer.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
This first line here, this whole set right here, I would plug in print runs, estimated print runs of hardcover version. I think we'll sell 10,000 hardcovers. So I plug that in there. The next column over is print, paper, and binding. How much is it going to cost per copy to print and bind the book? That is info I get from the production department. Then, you know, same thing with the mass market version of the book, or if we do a trade paperback version of the book.
And the print, paper, and binding changes. If you're printing 9,000 copies, it's different. So you go back to the production department.
Right. And, you know, if a certain amount of time has passed, even if its figures are the same, I have to go back to them because the price of paper may have changed. So it's a commodity that they go out and bid and buy on. Then below that, we plug in return rates, estimated return rates, what we think we're going to get back from the bookstores, and we kind of look at comparable titles or an author's previous sales, if they have previous sales, to get an idea of what sort of returns would come back. And on the mass market side, it's just, it can be really discouraging because mass market books, the whole idea is we get lots and lots of books out through a wholesaler, but return rates on a wholesaler can be up to, actually we're happy if we get 70% returns on a wholesaler.
You get 70% of them back?
Yeah.
70% of them back.
Really? On a paperback?
Yes.
Holy
Well,
cow.
From mass market.
But they come
Yeah.
back, the mass markets don't ship the book back. The
Yeah.
publisher pays freight both ways.
They ship the covers back.
They ship
They
the
tear the
covers
cover
back,
off.
and they take the book and they feed it to a machine in the back of the company called a paper wolf. And they turn it into confetti.
70%.
Unless they're crooked, and then they do a counterfeit cover on it and put it out and sell it and keep the money.
Or
But
if
that's rare.
Or if you see mass markets out there, somebody selling it, covers ripped off,
Don't.
those are,
It often will say if the cover is removed from this book,
it's stolen.
being
It's
sold.
basically,
Yeah.
But the whole reason 70% returns is okay is if you're shipping out 300,000 copies, 70% returns, that's still a good number of books we're selling. If we ship out 10,000 copies and get 70% return, that's not good. So, yeah.
So how long do they keep the books out generally before they determine?
Retail versus wholesale should be, there's this get sidetracked here.
I think we're getting sidetracked. We're getting into the whole insane structure of publishing. And I think maybe we need to stick to what editors do.
Yeah.
Except I'll tell you that Jackie Suzanne who wrote The Valley of the Dolls and all before most of you were born, made her success as a writer by figuring out that the truck drivers for the wholesalers were key to how long a paperback stayed in the racks. So she began getting up at 4:30 in the morning to meet the drivers with a tray of donuts. And the result, and nobody ever paid any attention to the drivers, so that, gee, that Miss Suzanne is a nice lady. I think I'll leave her books up there for another week.
Yeah, that whole thing has changed
Died,
with the truck
yeah.
drivers. But we can talk about that at the end, but let's get through it. Basically, this is all just figures I get from various departments, cost figures, royalty rates. I plug all that stuff in, and it creates, a lot of its formulas feeds over to a form that we print out, and I'll go to the publisher and say, please let me do this book. Same sort of thing with you.
Have had to get marketing to sign off on it.
Yeah. You have to go to the marketing department and various
And
other
they
places.
have to agree with your cheerful notions of sales.
Yes.
And say, what makes you think we can sell 10,000 copies of this? And then you say, well,
Yeah, because it's not like
because it's good. And they say, yeah, well, tell me how I'm going to sell that.
That's exactly it, yeah.
And
Saying because it's good is not,
That doesn't
carry
cut
the
it.
weight. So, should we?
Yeah, let's go for the next.
Okay,
Oh,
this is
more.
what the actual, all those figures on this end of the Excel spreadsheet feed over into this. And so this gets, all the info is basically here in all these percentages, and what we're looking at is contribution to overhead. Basically, we had to reach a certain percent. It's all, it took me a long time to really understand this, and I'm not sure if I really did. So,
You have to be good at math, too.
yeah, well, you have to be good at Excel. So, next.
Yeah, next.
Okay.
Now, this is an outline that Mr. Rigney gave me. And as you'll see, the red is rather smart-ass. Keep this as brief as possible. These folks are boring. And so this is the kind of thing that an editor will do on an outline. And there's very little on paper between Jim and me since we were husband and wife, as well as editor and writer. But anyway, that's enough of that one. This is what Jim used to call New York haiku. This is flap copy for a hardcover book, and it was so many lines, 25 lines of 70 characters, which is why it was New York haiku. Plus how much we had up there, I've forgotten. 120 characters for a cell line. Oh, thank you. Is this creative writing or what? And this is copy for The Fires of Heaven.
Next.
The flaps, yeah.
Rest of it.
Yeah. And this is Robert Jordan's memo for Darrell Sweet for the cover. Cover artists don't read books.
We know.
So this is for Darrell. A description of Shadar Logoth. Give us the next one. Description of Mashadar killing the thickening tendrils of fog. You know, it's to try and get a good image and keep going. Description of Samael. Remember that Rand is 6 feet 5 inches to 6 feet 6 inches tall, with blue-gray eyes and dark reddish hair. Darrell is not a tall man. And so Rand never looks quite that tall on the covers. So this went out with considerable description of the weapons.
That is a lot. I mean, I've never done that much for a book cover. That's awesome.
He cared. He cared a
Yeah.
lot. And this is catalog copy. And you fight in-house to get catalog weight 1, which means it gets the most space in the catalog. One of the most important books. When you have to settle for a 2, do you still do 1, 2, and 3?
No, full page, half. We don't really do half pages. 2-page spread
Yeah.
or full page. And then occasionally we'll do half pages, 2 books on the same page.
Is that different from lead and super lead?
2
little bit,
pages is
yeah.
super lead.
Yeah.
Or that's the biggest.
Yeah. lead and super lead, I think those are more on distinctions we use for on the mass market side.
Okay.
So each category has a lead, and then occasionally, a Wheel of Time book or whatever will be a super lead. Basically, we do even extra.
So anyway, this was pretty ground gripping and very much aimed at the trade. The next book following The Shadow Rising, hardcover, 1992, 5 weeks on the Times, 5 on PW, also made the other things you're going to sell with. The Dragon Reborn, out. 116,254 copies out. 92,779 net. Those days are long past, yeah. It was, would we had it again? And here's cover copy for the paperback, I guess. Yeah, that's what it is. More flaps.
Yeah, see, nowadays I just put it goes in a Word file and don't necessarily count the pages or anything. Or count the lines or anything.
And this is a sketch Darryl sent for the cover for Fires of Heaven. Notice that Rand has his back to us. And we know who that is, of course. And now you'll see the finish. Oh no, here's the, hi Darryl, here's the sketch. The Robin Hood on the back is to be replaced by a Trolloc. And so on.
I was going to say, most authors nowadays don't necessarily get that much feedback on, change this, change that on the, they see a sketch. When we see a sketch, usually the sketches are like line ink. Sketches rarely do I get color sketches like that, and that's, we can make changes there. But as far as, this is.
Well, we were picky.
Yeah.
And this, of course, was coming from the editor.
Yes.
Being in full cahoots with the writer. And here's the description. Here's the following more description. And that's what came. Better, right?
Rand's still too short.
And his coat is still red.
Yeah. Well, no, it was Matt's coat.
Oh.
That was anything but red.
Ah, I
Put
see.
it back to the other one.
Okay.
The sketch?
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, there it is over there.
And the composition in this is, I think, is more exciting than the sketch.
Yeah.
With the Trollocs on the side.
Yeah, these Trollocs are never right, but they're good.
Yeah.
They're wrong, but I love those horns. And this is a page of manuscript. I think, is this the one we auctioned, Brandon?
No, I don't think, wait. Yeah, this is.
It is.
Yeah.
Is this an edit your editorial notes?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're missing the
That-
top of it got cut off there.
That is Jim, yeah, there was some in my hand
Yep.
up there, the flames.
Because there was an edit you did on it that then I gave the page from Gathering Storm to Jason, that you made the same edit on my page that you
Yeah.
had made on Jim's. Jason's got those frames somewhere where they're
Yeah.
right next to each other where I made the same mistake.
It's a slightly different page. It's like one page off of this one.
Yeah.
It's slightly different.
Here it is.
This is a page from an editorial revision letter, not to Jim, but to Mike and Kathy Gear. I don't know whether you've read any of their stuff.
Did you edit the gears?
Yes, a number of them. I stopped some years ago.
They're very good writers.
Yeah, they are. They are. And wonderful storytellers. And you may notice, I put this in on purpose, it's from a longer letter, because the map is to show coyote penis mounted, which I thought was amusing. It was a note to them to be sure it was on the map.
Okay,